The car's now indicating 0 kilometers and 0% state of charge left. Yeah, we have 4.3 kilometers until we are at our destination. I'm hoping we're gonna be able to go there. It is basically downhill all the way to the charger, but if we are able to go there, this car today may post an impressive charging time on the long trip test. Today we are putting the new 3-row 7-seat full-size electric SUV called the Kia EV9 through one of the hardest tests we do here on the channel. The long trip test from Oslo to the south of Norway and back is designed to push EVs to the limit and find their weaknesses. Other eGMP cars like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 has struggled to reach peak charging speed and achieve its optimal charging curve because of poor route and battery management. How will the new Kia EV9 perform? Has Hyundai Motor Group's newest infotainment system fixed some of the earlier problems? And how will battery management work in the cold temperatures Norway has been experiencing the past few weeks? How many minutes will the EV9 spend charging to cover the more than 600 kilometer or nearly 400 mile route? That is what we're going to find out in today's long trip test. I'm pretty excited to test out the new and updated navigation system and route planner in this Kia EV9. So compared to the other eGMP cars, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, and Kia EV6, this EV9 has a completely new infotainment system, looks so much better and fresher, and is a lot easier to use. And along with that, we have a new map and navigation interface with an updated route planner. And when I put our destination in Kristiansand into the navigation system, when I started this test, everything looks so much better, it was so much easier to use, and everything's just crisper. I really like this new interface. Is it better than other electric cars? Well, a few other, like the Volkswagen products, I think this looks fresher than, but there are still other electric cars that do it better. Because one thing I am lacking that I'm not able to find, I've been pressing around here, is the battery percentage information we will arrive at our destination. This car still doesn't give us that information, which is annoying because that is very useful information. And the car also doesn't seem to be in agreement with the information it is telling me in the gauge cluster what the range is and what the actual car is calculating on a route. Because several times when I put this trip into the navigation system, our destination, several times after I started driving, the car was like, maybe you're not going to have enough range to get to your destination. Do you want me to put a charger into the route? And I pressed no a few times before the car stopped, prompting me that. And that was with like a buffer, like the difference between the actual distance to our destination and the range the car was telling us. The buffer there was like between 80 and 90 kilometers. It's down to about 40 kilometers now. And once we, hit 2-lane sections of this highway a little bit later on, that range buffer is still going to be quite a bit because we're going to have lower consumption. Talking about consumption though, 30.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers after an hour on the road, which isn't too bad considering what we had in our range test earlier this week when it was a lot colder. It's not that cold now, it's about minus 8 degrees Celsius. We've had as warm or as mild as minus 6 degrees Celsius and as cold as around 10 degrees Celsius. So I'm guessing we're going to have temperatures between minus 5 and minus 10, which is still pretty cold. It is January here in Eastern Norway, but it's not nearly as cold as what we had earlier this week with like minus 20 and 25 degrees Celsius. So what we've experienced in the past few weeks here in Norway is that there are a lot of traffic at chargers now, because not only do the EVs have reduced range now that it is extremely cold, but also charging times are longer. And those two things just accumulate. Maybe there's also more people out traveling now in January compared to December. So lately, a lot of charging stations have been full. So I'm pretty excited and interested to see what traffic we're going to encounter at chargers today. We may run into issues with chargers not working in the cold, and also more cars on the road than usual, and especially at chargers. So with all of that out of the way, I'm excited to see if this car will also tell me how much percentage to charge at once we put a charger into the route planner, and how long to charge, because that is the last feature that this navigation system is really lacking to be on par with most of the competitors. We're gonna have to stop and do a charging session before we get to our turnaround point in Kristiansand. We're only about 15-20 kilometers from where we're gonna turn around, but I've decided to stop at the Ionity chargers here in Lillesand to charge, and that is because of the preconditioning of this car and how it works. So I wasn't sure if they changed it from stop preconditioning below 20%, so I didn't want to risk, going to Kristiansand and then going back to this point and not being able to have a warm battery coming here at a too low state to charge, meaning that the battery would have cooled down from after preconditioning and we potentially wouldn't be getting a high charging speed. But now it is actually a bit milder than we've had. It's -1 degree Celsius, but I got an answer to what I was wondering about, and this car does stop preconditioning once you hit 19% stated charge. But we've been preconditioning from about 50 something odd percentage to, below or down to 20% stated charge. So we're gonna go to these Circle K chargers actually, instead of the Ionity. Oh no, maybe we wanna go to the Ionity. Maybe we'll go to an Ionity charger over here. And is there any? Yeah, we'll go to that one. That seems to be vacant. The one on the opposite side of that BMW iX, because Ionity chargers are actually pretty good at giving that peak charging speed. This car will peak at 210 kilowatts, so that's what we're going to see if we're going to get that charging speed. We have the charge port on the rear right side here. So before that, we are down to 15% stated charge, so we've only driven about maybe 10-15 minutes without preconditioning, so the battery should be nice and warm now, ready for getting that peak charging speed. We covered 280.6 kilometers. We've been on the road for almost 3 hours, and our average consumption is 30.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is pretty high, but a lot lower than what we had in the range test when it also was a lot colder outside. Okay, we are now connected, and let's see what charging speed we are going to get. We're at 70 kilowatts. So while this is ramping up, I just want to give a huge thanks to today's video sponsor, which is Elton with the Elton charging app. The Elton charging app is the most awesome charging app if you live in Norway, Sweden, Finland, or Denmark, because one charging app with one map interface and one payment method will let you charge at almost all charge point operators in all of these countries, including this Ionity charger here at Circle K in Lillesand. So if you want to support the channel, go to the link in the description box down below and download the Elton charging app from there. It's going to make your life a lot easier while traveling with an electric car. So we've now come up to 160 kilowatts. Okay, but I'm guessing we're actually going to get a little bit higher charging speed once we go above 20%. So let's see what we do get a little bit later at 25% stated charge. We didn't actually have to wait much longer. Now at 19% stated charge, we are at 199 kilowatts. So I'll keep an eye on that and update you guys if this goes any higher at a higher state of charge. Welcome to Kristiansand, guys, and we're actually on our way back towards Oslo now, and that is because I exited one exit before. I'm normally exiting because there was so much traffic now around 4 o'clock. We're like stagnating in traffic, like bumper to bumper for like 10 minutes, not going anywhere. So I'm like, okay, let's just exit instead of just wasting time. Start looping back, and then we'll do like an extra loop over here in this place called Lund, right outside of Kristiansand, to get those extra kilometers, about 1.5 kilometer. We shortened the trip, so I'm gonna go about 750 meters this way, turn around, and then go back again, so we get in all the kilometers. But okay, we are now here. We've been 3 hours and 23 minutes on the road. Average consumption is 30.0 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and our charging session was pretty short, actually 21 minutes. We charged to 76% stated charge, and we peaked at 203 kilowatts. So not exactly that peak of 210, but not bad. That is actually pretty good. And the charging curve was super flat. I think we had like 200 kilowatts to like 63%, and once we were at 75%, we had speeds up to 175 kilowatts, and then it started throttling down to 137 kilowatts, and then I disconnected at 76% stated charge. So we're going to have to do another charging session, much shorter, but so far this is looking pretty darn good for the EV9, and the battery preconditioning, the management of that, at least, even though it doesn't go below 20% stated charge, thus far has been pretty darn awesome and reliable. And in this car, there's also a manual preconditioning button that we could use in case we don't find a charger in the navigation system. So let's see, once we start heading back, and once I find out where I want to charge on our way back to Oslo, maybe we'll use that manual preconditioning button in the infotainment system. We've now stopped here at Esso in Rugtvedt at the recharge charging station here to do our second charging stop of this trip. So we stopped here with 24% stated charge connected, and now at 32% stated charge, we are getting 203 kilowatts. So I chose to manually precondition this time and not use the navigation system because I wanted to give myself options. I knew that there were a few places I could stop. I could stop here, I could stop a little bit earlier at the Circle K station in Bamble, or a little bit up the road, several places. There are a lot of places I could stop here and get 200 plus kilowatts of charging speed. So I used the manual preconditioning. I started at around 50%, so precondition about an hour before I arrived here, and we're getting that peak charging speed. So preconditioning, either automatic with this car via navigation system or manually, as long as you don't go below 20% or much below 20%, seems to be working pretty fine even at -7 degrees Celsius. So that is pretty nice. So I think we're going to go to around 50% state to charge. This is going to be a very quick charging session that should give us enough juice to get back to our starting point back in Esso in Slepen. If we can make it the 8.1 kilometers to go back to our destination with only 3 kilometers of range and 1% state to charge left, this car may be able to post a very impressive time now in cold winter weather. We made it back, guys. We made it back to our starting point here at Esso in Slepen without being stranded alongside the motorway with a dead battery in -6 degrees Celsius. So thank God for that. And obviously from the intro, you guys know we arrived here with 0 kilometers of range left and 0% state of charge. left. Yeah, we haven't done a 0% state to charge run in the long trip test for a long time. Can't remember the last time we did it. And every time it feels like an achievement because it feels like I'm able to eke the best result out of the car possible, but also at the same time, it is very scary pushing these cars this hard, especially it being as cold as it has been today. Just down the road, about half an hour from here, we had cold temperatures as cold as minus 12 degrees Celsius. So today it has been very, very cold. But what was impressive, even when we were at 0% state of charge, the HVAC system was still blowing warm air. Some cars stopped blowing warm air into the cabin at like 5% state of charge, and most cars at 0% state of charge just shut down the HVAC system completely. This was still blowing warm air, so that is very, very impressive. And also the consumption today, 30.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, does sound high, but consider this car is a large 3-row boxy SUV running in super cold temperatures. I don't think that is bad at all, especially when we compare that to my motorway range test I did earlier this week with much higher consumption than that. So I can't wait to test this car when it is milder outside. I can't wait to test it in spring and in summer because I think this car is going to impress me more than it did today. And wow, did this car impress me. So you guys are here at the end of the video because you want to know how many minutes this car spent charging today to complete the 610 kilometer route in the long trip test. Well, without further ado, the Kia EV9 all-wheel drive GT line spent 30 minutes over 2 charging sessions to complete today's route. And that is very, very impressive. Look at the chart down below, guys. You may be thinking, well, it's not even in the top 10. It's not even in the top 20. No. But this test was done in much colder conditions than any of those cars that have performed better than this. So considering that, this is super, super impressive. And to my recollection, I don't think there's any car this big. There's no boxy, square, large 3-row SUV that has done better than this. And the fact that this did so well, it being so cold outside, is right out impressive. It may not have the biggest battery, it may not have, the best consumption, be the most efficient, but the fact that this car was able to achieve basically almost peak charging speed and optimal charging curves over those 2 charging sessions in these conditions with these cold temperatures is just testament to the improved battery management in this Kia compared to the earlier eGMP cars. Manually preconditioning the battery just lets the driver manage the battery temperature much better. And the fact that this gets, 200 kilowatts plus up to almost like 65% and even 175 kilowatts to like 75%, you're just able to utilize more of that battery more of the time. Yes, this car could have performed better if it would have been able to precondition the battery below 20%, but the fact that you do have, those higher charging speeds at those high percentages, I don't think it is as important as in other cars where you're not able to get close to that. Even in my Taycan, which peaks at like 270 kilowatts, I don't think I've seen more than 100 kilowatts at like 60 or 70%. So these speeds are impressive. And even now at 51% state of charge with no preconditioning, it's 3 or 4 hours since we charged the last time and we drove the car down to 0%, we're still getting 150 kilowatts. So that is super impressive. So guys, let me know what you think about today's results in the Kia EV9. I'm super impressed about this car and the charging time it was able to achieve. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.